Hey everyone, welcome back to Shatter and Rise, a podcast about taking the different path in life and finding some different outcomes. I'm joined by Spencer Ayres today. Thank you so much for joining us, Spencer.
No problem. Pleasure to be here, Ashley. Thanks so much for the invite.
Yeah, of course. And I apologize. Please let me know. I'm losing my voice today, so I'm going to do my best. I've got my water and my tissue box. We'll be all
All
right.
set. We're going to be great. If
So
not, I'll just talk.
that sounds wonderful too. Please feel free. So yeah, start up. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I love and hate this question. How far
I
back do we
know
want to go? Hey, look,
it's super hard, right?
it's so hard. Yeah, I live in London with my family, 2 kids, my wife, and lots of animals. But on a professional side of things, I guess like I'm one of these people that has lots of different job titles depending on who I talk to, right? So
Yeah.
kind of a hybrid. I do a lot of things. Often what I'll talk about is kind of innovation consultancy, and that kind of works for quite a few people. I'm a product designer. I am a teacher in the broadest like view of that word, and that I help people to learn, I guess, and try to unlock things in people, skills and progress for people. But ultimately, what I really try to do, the kind of title isn't really important for me, but what I try to do is enable people to do things differently, to either create new products, to create content, to create changes in their work or their lives. And that really ranges in loads of different types of work. And what I kind of do on a day to day, though, is I guess I'm a facilitator. I kind of
Mhm.
convene people around workshops, maybe around particular challenges that they might be facing in their organization, or customer or new ideas, startup ideas that they want to kind of explore. Or yeah, sometimes it's about helping people figure out what they want to do as well. So I do loads of different things,
It's
but I know we're going
amazing.
to go backwards from here probably and talk about how I
Yeah.
got here and all that kind of thing. But like it's just, I think, like so many people, right? My journey has been so different.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm really kind of looking forward to
Yeah.
opening up on that side as well.
Yeah. So that's what this podcast really is all about. I just want to just hear from people on these different stories, right? Because you always hear the typical thing of like, oh, I went to college and then I went and got a job and I did that for like 10 years and then I got promoted. Like that's the standard. But there's so much divergence now, and um, I want to normalize the fact that it doesn't have to be that way. That you can have multiple job titles, that you can be different things to different people. If that works for you, then why not, right? And I
Yeah,
want to show people that it can happen. So yeah, I would love to hear kind of like, I know it's hard to like synopsis everything when you've had such a diverse history, but the best that you can, kind of where you
yeah.
started and little things along the way that kind of wove through your history to lead you where you are now.
Yeah, no, 100%. In fact, just to build on one point that you just raised there, which is like you can have lots of different
Mhm.
careers and titles and all these things. I would go a step further and encourage that. You know, for
Mhm.
me, like it has worked so much. I have realized fairly recently in my life, like I'm getting on, I'm in my 40s. I have realized very recently that I'm not good at long-term projects and sticking to one thing. I
Yeah.
like to chop and change. I want to do different things, and now I'm kind of building my career around that. But
Yeah.
let me take you a little bit of a journey, I guess. Like I went to university, yep, but what the course that I did at university was by pure chance. In fact, many of those things, those stepping stones, were I look at now and think they were chance. They were capitalizing on an opportunity. I think
Mhm.
people think about luck as something that just happens to you, but often it's, for me, it's about something that you have an input in. It's about capitalizing an opportunity, seeing something that can be there, and taking that leap sometimes towards that. But I failed my my A level, so like high school end of year exams when I was 18. I failed. I did really badly, and a whole load of things were going on in my life at that time. My parents had got divorced. I was drinking a lot. I was going out a lot. I didn't want to do any schoolwork, and so I kind of really messed things up. And what that meant was that I had to do an extra year at college to kind of top up on a few things that I'd missed. But my choice in university and my choice in career at that point was basically laid out for me from the age of about 10, because actually earlier than that, because the thing that I remember with regards to my career choice, if you like, was that my grandma told me, you're good at Lego, you're going to be in my engineer, right? And so this thing stuck with me from the age of like 7 or 8 or something. Like, you're good at building things, you break things apart, you put them back together, you're going to be the engineer of the family. And I didn't even know what an engineer was. And it was luckily I failed my exams. I went to university and figured out, my God, this thing, I don't want to do that. Like, I had no idea what it was, but I realized what it was. I realized that was not what I wanted to be doing. I switched completely my university course at that point. Although it still had engineering in the title, it was about music. It was about music systems. It was about building synthesizers and recording bands and playing music. And I got really into electronic music and all these things. And what that kind of enabled me to do is realize that even though I couldn't draw, and I was told at school, you can't draw, therefore you're not creative, I realized there is some inherent creativity in there. It just hasn't been able to manifest. It hasn't come out yet. And so I kind of realized this at university. Thankfully, by chance, by failing my exams, I realized that, I can perhaps apply this in a different way. And what I've kind of focused on as an overarching theme, I guess, in everything that I've done, is this marriage, this I think magic can happen when you mix what traditionally would be kind of left brain and right brain type skills. But if you mix technology or hard, skills with creative skills, then you get to this amazing point. And that's kind of where and it took a long time to kind of retrospectively piece those dots together, and kind of realize that that's something that I have done all my life. Just to fast forward a little bit, because I could talk about this for so long.
It's okay.
My kind of next big kind of career was as a teacher. I was like 25, finished and graduated from college, from university. I was working in guitar shops and like bars and whatever else, and playing music and whatever, all these good things. And my partner and I at the time moved. So we moved about 100 miles from where we were living, back home, like back to where my kind of family were and everything else. Didn't have a job. My wife was a teacher, and a newspaper came through the door, and I had no idea, never seen this newspaper before. I was flicking through, looking at the job, and it said graduate teaching assistant. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I can go for this. I was older than a graduate, but like, I'll go for this job. And I went and started working in school. Within a few weeks, I was taking classes, teaching people PE, of all things, teaching people math, all these different things. And then the year later, I was doing my teaching qualifications and went on to teach for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right? So just crazy thing.
Yeah. Such a transition. That's great.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. But I was teaching, computing, and I was teaching. I eventually got to the pinnacle, what should have been the most amazing job. I was the director of digital arts at this incredible academy, and it was sponsored by all of these amazing film and game industry organizations.
Wow.
Amazing job. And I hated it. And I absolutely hated it. And the reason was I just fallen out of love of teaching, and I felt like so constricted with what I could do. And so, and luckily at this point I'd got introduced to a few people, again, chance encounters, and I started, and I separated with my partner at the point there, moved away again, moved to London, and I got a job. And this, the funny, hopefully funny story, maybe you tell me, is that one week I was teaching this horrible group of like 14 and 15-year-olds spreadsheets, right? Whatever else, these, dry, boring
Yeah.
things. And then the very next week, I was chaperoning will.i.am to meet Prince Charles at
What?
St. James's Palace in London.
That is a good joke.
Right?
What?
Complete mess. Wild jump. This is honest to God truth.
That's
Like, I arrived
crazy.
in London. I got this job with the Prince's Trust, an incredible charity that help hundreds of thousands of people all over the world now, actually, as well, that are
Wow.
from underprivileged backgrounds, and they're not in work or education, whatever else, and they need a bit of a helping hand. And at the time, digital technology and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths, was just kind of bubbling up. It was an interesting area for people. It's probably around 2012, about 10 years ago now. And will.i.am had given the Prince's Trust £500,000 to say, go and do something with technology and maths and arts with kids and help them kind of move into that world of technology. That's where the future's at. And I had no idea how to use this money. And because I'd started to merge those kind of arts and technology worlds in my teaching, I came in and happily spent that money for will.i.am.
That's so crazy. That's such a transition. But no, but in overview thinking, it makes sense, right? Like when you follow the string of where your background came from, of course you could take on that position because you had said yes to a lot of other things along the way that gave you that unique differentiator, right? To be like the perfect person at that time.
I struggle with that, but yes, you're right. Like, I think you're right. And like, I think that's one of the things that maybe a little bit modest with those kind of things. But actually, when you think about it, it's all of those things when you knit together, those diverse set of experiences that makes you unique, I think. And I was reading a great book. I think it's called Range. I can't remember the guy who wrote it, but it's about not being a specialist in one thing, but actually having all of these different strings to your bow that you can adapt and focus on different things at different times. And I think that's what I've been able to do really well. I love the fact that you've pulled that out, by the way.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
No, and I think that it's a little scary because I'm very similar. I get bored very easily, and so I am a serial learner, and I love to pick up new skills. And to me, that's the new version of job security. But we live in a world where we're told like you need to specialize, you need to niche down, you need to focus, or how are people going to know what you do? And what I love most about what you're doing is that you didn't do that and you found success. So it's not impossible to have that range. And in fact, sometimes that makes you like super special to someone, right?
I think so, yeah. And actually, I kind of have this ongoing dialogue in my head about this kind of idea of specializing or being too niche and whatever else. I think it is good at times to niche down, but I think, if I kind of again fast forward to the last couple of years where again I've gone through a big transition, a big change, I feel like I've niched down into certain ways of doing things, but not necessarily applying them to a specific industry or sector or area, so I, like, to your point earlier, like I was probably the perfect person for that role because of all those different experiences. What I do now is that I'm able to take that stuff that I thought was gone forever from teaching. I'm able to take things that I did at university now and apply that to facilitation, workshopping, coaching, and these kind of things where you can pull the best things out of people. So I've kind of specialized in that. I've got even deeper into being able to hold a room, being able to take people on sometimes a 4-hour, 8-hour remote experience online. It's super intense,
It
really
is.
tiring, really energy sapping, but able to bring people along on that journey for that whole time in order to make massive change for them or their organization. So like I think I agree, like keeping things broad, but actually building on your strengths. This is one of my other big lessons, right? Build on your strengths. Don't worry about your weaknesses a little bit. I remember a job that I was in a startup. This is after I'd left the Prince's Trust. I went into a startup the Prince just actually worked with, and I kind of made this introduction between a bunch of startups in the London area, because it was all like the whole tech London scene was going crazy in the
Mm-hmm.
sort of 2010, 2015, 2016, those kind of times. And so I'd made this introduction, and then I kind of basically went over to this startup. And I remember this conversation with one of my managers at the time, and she was saying, "You're a really bad manager. You're really rubbish. You're not controlling people. You're not like, on people's backs and all these things." And really hurt. When people say that kind of thing, sometimes it can be really challenging, especially when it's done in certain ways.
Yeah.
But what I realized there was like, I'm not your type of manager,
Right.
but and I don't want to build on that. I don't want to build on that weakness. I want to do things in a different way. And I actually started to really focus and learn a lot about kind of servant leadership style,
Mm-hmm.
about being there for your people to enable them to do the best work that they can do. And that kind of, again, took me in a kind of a different direction again.
Do you remember what it was that, like, was it your gut feeling that told you that you didn't need to like work on that part of yourself? Because I feel like I've also hit those walls where, I mean, there's lots of well-meaning people in the world that are just trying to be helpful because they see like, oh, I think I can help this person be better. Like, for instance, she's like, you need to work on your manager skills, right? But
Yeah.
was there a part of like, was it your gut feeling, gut instinct that you were just like, wait a minute, no, this is how I work. This is my way of doing things. I appreciate that feedback, but like, how did you know to not
No,
do
no.
that?
Yeah. I wish I had that power within my gut to find that, but I don't think I did. I think I actually remember the person that basically told me it, right? And it was someone that would worked for me, a lot more junior, someone that I keep in touch with now. And she was like, basically, that's BS. She was like, that's BS. You are the best manager because you let me do what I want to do, but you're there for me. And I was like,
Yeah.
dang, wow, that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
But that was sometimes you need some, and it can be from a place that you don't expect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's stuck with me for since that moment, and yeah, Dolly was awesome. Dolly's still awesome. I love Dolly.
That's so great.
Yeah.
But it's true though, like there's always those bright and dark moments, right? Of like a negative and a positive, and it's all in how you react to it that really shows what direction you're going to go next. Because you could have ignored the positive person who was again a junior, and you could have focused on like this leadership person telling you how bad you were at it. And again, I think a lot of what we do, like you said, is a leap of faith. It's a choice that we make to pay attention to one or the other that leads us down these paths. It's sure luck, that's a way to say it, but it's also a decision that we're making of which way are we going to go. That's really awesome.
Yeah. I agree. I think we underplay the amount of decisions and that we make constantly. Every
Oh
single
yeah.
thing is a decision not to do something else, or you
Yep.
know, and I don't think there's enough done to help people to realize how to make some of those decisions. I think I'm still learning, and like I'm in an amazing place.
Mhm.
Constant journey though, right? And
Yep.
I kind of got quite heavily into stoicism and kind of a load of philosophy around these ideas of this kind of locus of control and your circle of control, and what you're the only thing that you really have is your judgment and the way that you react to everything
Mm-hmm.
external that's provided for you. And that's something that I wish was much easier to experience and to get into your heart.
Yeah.
But it's a constant battle, right?
Yes. And that's not something I feel, even if someone tried to just teach it to you, especially at a young age, that you haven't experienced enough of the things required to really make you feel the, I'm going to say pain, um, to make you see why that's so important, why studying that, why working on that is so important. You don't have enough on the line necessarily
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
to really push you to be uncomfortable enough to like do those challenges for yourself, right? And that sounds very I don't know, it's not describing it properly, but maybe you understand because you've been there, of like you have to constantly practice that art of making better choices, right? Like I'm in this moment and my son just completely disobeyed my ask of him to respectfully put his laundry in the basket, right? And I'm angry about it now. Okay, I need to stop. I need to take a breath, and I need to bring that to his attention in a calm manner so that next time hopefully he'll make a better choice for himself. But again, like that's me going through a whole process just to not yell at my son because he did left his clothes on the floor next to the basket for the 12th time this week. Like, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like it's a process, and you
yeah.
have the, I don't know, I don't think if someone would have tried to teach me that in school, maybe there's really excellent education that studied the psychology of children that they can do that now, but I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of life things that help you along the way to learn or like
I,
push you to develop that skill.
I totally agree, but I do it slightly through gritted teeth because I think it's a shame, and I wish there were shortcuts, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But your description here is, I totally 100% agree with. It is pain,
Hmm.
and there were so many words that we could use, but I often use when I'm talking to people about people that think they're not creative,
Yeah.
about how you can kind of build up that creativity muscle, because
Mhm.
it's like a muscle,
Yep.
and you can't go to the gym and expect to walk out like Arnie, and you can't just try and come up with one idea and suddenly you're Don Draper.
Right.
You have to go through a practice of doing that, and this is one of the things that I've been doing a huge amount and actually really helped me along the way here, is like super simple stuff, lists, gratitude lists. We talk about
Hmm.
those kind of things these days, but if you want to come up with ideas, write 10 ideas every single day. Most of them will be repeated, they'll be rubbish. I go through this thing called Sturgeon's law. 90% of everything you do is crap. If you have that in your head and you're happy with that, right,
Yeah.
you get rid of that perfectionist tendency and you go, it's cool, because one thing out of this is going to be great. And that is
Yeah.
a completely amazing way to look at it. And it opens people's minds into the art of the possible. But it
That
is
is a great
practice.
practice. That's a
Yeah.
great practice, though.
Right.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, when you ask yourself, because it seems a little overwhelming at first, like, oh, I have to do all these, like, I have to make better choices. What does that really mean? But putting into practice simple things like that of, yeah, writing down 10 ideas a day so that you're taking everything out of your head. I'm a big proponent of that. And you probably feel this way as a facilitator as well. Get it out of your head, write it down. It becomes much more tangible. It's not as like stressful for you to just keep fixating on things.
Yeah.
It's a great
Yeah.
practice just to write things down, period. But then, yeah, acknowledging that not all of these things are going to be wonderful ideas, but yeah, if you have 100, you got 10 great ideas. Like
That's
that's a
you take
lot.
that, right?
That's a lot. So
Yeah.
no, and that's a great practice. I'm
Yeah.
trying to get better at doing that myself. That's kind of where I've landed, is just starting to at every night create a habit of just writing the
Yeah.
gratitude journal, but then also, yeah, the ideas of um, just things, anything that's in my head, because I think it does instill that opportunity for the one, right?
Mm, 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 mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and I
just
think
getting better.
so often people get fixated on this, don't they? And particularly young people, or when career changes, people that are looking for something else, they're waiting for that spark,
Hmm.
suddenly that answer. And I think the struggle is real, and
It
you
is.
you have to struggle to find it. I mean, in my job, in my kind of career right now, I practice. I'm a design thinker. I do a lot of design thinking approaches to helping people solve problems, which is all about empathizing, understanding the problem before you jump to solutions.
Yep.
So understanding yourself and understanding the wider world, but then prototyping and testing as quickly as possible. And one of the things that I honestly, truly believe is that you can prototype absolutely anything. And it's kind of got to the point of obsession for me. So I prototyped career options. I prototype everything, like everything around the house. I prototyped this office that I'm in here. I built during lockdown, the first COVID lockdown, prototyped it first in 3 different ways, see whether it was going to actually work. Right? Was it going to be the right space? Where can I put my desk? And then, when you kind of come to put it together, you realize it works. It's much more likely to work. But I did that with my career. I took some small stepping stones. A lot of people would just say, you're I don't know, you're trying something. Like, I think about it as a hypothesis. I believe I can be really good at this thing. Like, I believe, and then your hypothesis follows on from that. I believe I can be the best workshopper for innovation and product startups or whatever in the world, right? And I can make a career out of it. I can make a job out of it. I can work. I was going to say when I want to work. It's not quite that great, not yet. We'll talk a bit about that.
Yeah.
But like, I'm in control. I'm in control of the work that I do, the people that I work with. Broadly the hours that I kind of work, and that has come from a series of kind of experiments to figure out, how to do this. And this all started for me. I remember exactly when it started. So weird, like again, one of those moments, right? My dad sadly passed away at just 66 from a heart attack.
Oh, no,
a year, 2 years. Yeah, thank you. 2 years and a day after that, I was like, I'm 30 in 2.5. No, sorry, I'm 40 in 2.5 years. And I remember my lasting memory of my dad was when he was 40. Like, this is what I've got in my head of, and I remember his 40th birthday and all these things. And I was like, I want to stick around for a bit longer than till 66, right? I want to do that. And I went through this huge change, and I basically designed my life, which sounds wild, but I set myself some activities to figure out what I enjoy, what I didn't enjoy, what I want to do, what I want to do when I get up in the morning, how I can be more physically fit, mentally fit, how I can be there for my family more, how I can get that balance right. And I went through really 2.5 years of experimenting with diet, with exercise, with work, different ways of working, different types of jobs that I worked in. And then I got to the age of 40. I did a half marathon. I went from one side of Scotland to the other on bike and running.
Cool.
And did all these crazy things that I would never have been able to do before. And I managed to set up a new career for myself, which was, when looking back again, retrospectively, this is when you're kind of doing something good, or you've gone on the right path. Is I look back and it just seems so obvious that this is what I should have done.
Right.
But at the time it wasn't there. It took all of this experimentation and figuring out to kind of realize what it was that I needed to do.
That's so cool. Gives me a little bit of hope, because I'm in that zone right now. So tell me a little bit about, because I love this. This is actually like what I'm trying to make a career out of, is like helping people do this whole thing that you just described. Tell me a little bit about the steps you took to, well, you just did, but basically how did you refine that as you went? So you said you kind of designed your life, right? When you started to build this new business or new career path for yourself, what were some of the things that you did that helped you like move forward? Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I'll try and pull out some explicit stuff for you. So one of the things that I did was I plotted my energy levels at different points in a day,
Yeah.
right? Again, sounds kind of weird, but I literally
Mhm.
had a graph and I put like, how am I feeling? What's my energy?
Mhm.
And I did this for over about just a week, maybe a little bit longer than a week. So I wanted to capture, we had like some 2-week cycles in the place that I worked. So I wanted to kind of capture most of the things.
Mhm.
And one of the big aha moments was like, I was in the leadership team at the time. So I was having these long 2-hour kind of strategy meetings. And I was, when I was working my way up in the organization, I was like, I really want to be at that table. Like this is the thing. I want to be a founder. A lot of my motivation has come from wanting to be a startup founder. So
Mhm.
like, I want to be around that table. I want to be learning from all these people. And what I realized after maybe a year or so of being in there and doing this activity was
Mhm.
I came out of those boardroom meetings or those leadership room meetings completely physically drained, could not,
Mhm.
had a really glum face. I was not smiling. I wasn't my alert self that I would normally
Mhm.
be. And I just kind of realized, like, I thought that's what I want, where I wanted to be. Thought that's where I should
Yeah.
be because of this social pressure, I think, that we feel about
Uh-huh.
being in. We've got to get up. We've got to get up that ladder. You've got to get to the top of the chain. And this social pressure was forcing me for that belief that that's where I should be.
Mhm.
And it took me a long time to, I kind of acknowledged it, but it didn't took me a long time to act on that, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the things that I did. I also again had one of those moments. There was an opportunity for me to. I was in a kind of a managerial management role, but there was an opportunity for me to take on some workshop facilitation because someone was not there, or I can't remember exactly the situation, but I
Mhm.
jumped to it. That would happen to be in that 2-week period. My energy, I was bouncing off the walls after
Yeah.
that session. I was like, what? Like, that was an amazing feeling. And where had that gone, And that was kind of one of those pivotal moments. I think that
Mhm.
kind of plotting your energy, reflecting on that and asking why, ask why as many times as you can,
Yeah.
um, kind of can really, really help. One of the things that I did as well was um, I built up a personal manifesto. So this is kind of weird, right? But one of the things that I felt was I was getting loads of pressure from people to do things, maybe just like
Mhm.
going out after work or, going for a drink, these different things. And
Mhm.
thinking of one particular thing that's still on that manifesto now is that I have dinner with my family every Friday night, right? So it's a really simple thing.
Mhm.
But what that means is that I'm not working and I'm not in town. I'm not going to the pub with people from work. I'm at home having dinner with my kids. It is a law. It's like a rule. And if
Mhm.
you say to people, I can't do that, it's part of my personal manifesto, they go, what? I'm like, I've got a personal manifesto. This is one of the things.
Yeah.
It's a non-negotiable. They're like, cool, fine. And what that also means is that you can push back on a whole load of other things.
Mhm.
So I pushed back on work trips that I didn't really want to do because they went over the weekend. It's Friday. My rule. I've got to do this thing with my family on Friday. Like, I can't let my kids down.
Yeah.
And so that, other things on there were like, if I can see the top of the elevator, top of the escalator, I'll take the stairs. If I can walk there in less than half an hour, I walk and I don't catch the public transport.
That's great.
So these kind of things just kind of getting me now into the habit of taking that harder route
Mhm.
sometimes. Some of the mantras that I had at this point were like, hard decisions, easy decisions, hard life. Hard decisions equals easy life, right?
Mhm.
That kind of the obstacle is the way. Find the challenge, take that difficult decision, take that difficult route sometimes, because the long-term effects of it are enormous, and they
Yeah.
far outweigh that short-term, dopamine effect or whatever.
That's huge. I guess I don't call it a manifesto, but I call it like just my lifestyle goals basically. But I think it's really important to set those boundaries. And you probably discovered, and one of the things that I realized um, was that a lot of people don't set, especially when they're just doing a startup or starting out as a freelancer, whatever that might be, they don't have those lifestyle boundaries drawn. And then they build these businesses that they end up hating because they don't get to have the life that they imagine. Well, you didn't
Right.
set yourself up for success there because you didn't have a manifesto. So
Yeah,
that's so
I think
huge.
so.
It's huge.
And it's one of those things, when we got in, you asked me to do this on the back of a post that I wrote on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and
Yep.
what I was cautious of after posting it, if I'm honest, but was like that everything is tickety boo, everything is good, and it's not.
Right.
It's
Mm-hmm.
always a battle. It's always a struggle.
Yeah.
Um, there's always a hard decision to make. There are some, I've had to sack clients, people that pay me well. I've sacked them because it's toxic, because
Yep.
it doesn't fit in with how I want to be operating, how I want to work. I used to have this thing when I was teaching of like Sunday night, just dreading that Monday morning,
Yes.
and when you get to that point with when I'm working,
Mm-hmm.
that that's not a good place for you to be.
Nope.
And it's really hard to make that decision. It's really hard. Like, I'm not saying
It
it's an
is.
easy thing, but your future self thanks you for it
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
you know
And it's not, even though you think you're being kind because you're people pleasing that client, you're doing what they're asking of you, internally you're being dishonest with them because you know that you're just going to get more and more bitter as it goes on, and it's eventually going to lead to something negative. So
yeah,
being aware of that and taking the steps and just being honest with them that that's where things are at is really a kinder thing overall than letting it drag on.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Anyways, even though it is hard, it's not an easy
yeah,
conversation. A lot of the times it's not something that we enjoy doing. But really, a lot of us want to build those positive relationships with people, and that means being honest with them. So again, it's
no,
another practice thing, right? You have to practice.
oh goodness, I agree so much with that.
Yeah.
And radical candor and all of that great
Mhm.
stuff. You're absolutely right, but it's about kindness, and it is
Mhm.
it is doing the kind thing. and I think so often failings in organizations or relationships or families or whatever come down to not being able to communicate and
Yep.
not being able to have those hard conversations and
Yep.
that honesty, and that ultimately what is kindness,
Yeah.
at an early stage. And I think that's one of the key things, right?
Yes.
A friend of mine talks about it as tell me if I've got something stuck in my tooth.
Right.
Tell me if there's spinach there, right? I don't want to walk around with a big black thing in my teeth.
Right.
Tell me it's there. And so
Exactly.
I kind of like that. I think that's a really important thing.
It really is. And yeah, not just in professional, but even in your personal life. I know with my partner, I've gone, you know, a long way to learn, like, one, I'm not going to come from a place of anger when I am having that conversation. I do need to like evaluate. And you should feel that way. I think even professionally, like, don't reactively tell someone that, when you're in a moment of distress that you want to quit, but just being upfront about it, because it becomes like a canker sore. It becomes this
Yeah.
big, huge, evil monster, and it'll get more difficult the longer you wait,
Yeah.
versus just kind of doing it again when you've kind of come to terms with your emotional standpoint. You're not in a bad place there, that you feel in control, so that you can not be attacking them. That yeah, it's much better to just kind of rip the band-aid off, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
huge. So kind of just a wrap, because I want to be conscientious of your time too today. Can you talk a little
Oh,
bit
it's not
about
Friday. It's all good.
oh, it's true. It's true. Can you talk a little bit about your like where you see kind of things going? And I know that's really hard to do, but because of the way that I see now that you think, do you have like some things that you're looking ahead at, that you've already set ahead? Like, what is your protocol for, like, okay, here's where I want to be now in the next 2 years, 5 years, things like that?
That's a great question. And probably counterintuitively, I don't really
Mhm.
have that longer range view.
Yeah.
Um, and I have done in the past, 100% have done.
Yeah.
I've had, I want to be here in 3 years. I want to be there in 5 years. I want to,
Mhm.
I want that role. And right now I'm just super happy with where I
See,
am.
that's what
And
I kind of wonder, if like, do you
yeah,
really need them? Because you have your manifesto, right?
yeah,
Those are and you're still learning along the way. I feel like this is the difference between like a design sprint methodology and like the old school way of how you run a business, right? In
right,
your
right, right, right.
in your own life, isn't it kind of okay to take like little, like day by day, and just
Yeah,
kind of, as long as you have your base, your
yeah,
manifesto that has your boundaries, then you're much more adaptable to change, like COVID and things like this. Because if you had your sights set on like this goal of, this is what I have to do, and like you ended up with your startup mindset of like, I have to be a founder, but then once you got into it, it felt really miserable. And it wasn't until you did those checks and balances that you really understood the why. And you
yeah,
probably would have stayed there and been
yeah,
miserable, because in your head, you're like, this was what I wanted. So I think that's really fascinating that you don't. I think that's
yeah.
great.
I mean, yeah, I am. I'm in a really great place. I had an
Mhm.
amazing holiday, like
Mhm.
for the first time in so long. And this is honest to God truth. I wrote this post and I was like, I was typing it out. I didn't pick up my laptop, didn't go on Slack, didn't check any emails. And I was like, oh, no, I didn't. I like, honest to God. And like, it's still, when I was writing it and I kind of read it back, I was like, wow, that's totally true. And that is so different to where I was. And
Mhm.
I'm now in the place, I'm incredibly fortunate, right? I have an office at the end of my garden. I walk, 50 feet or something, 50 yards with a coffee in the morning. I come and I work and I have this space
It's
to
wonderful.
time, and I have conversations with amazing people about amazing
Mhm.
projects. Um, I am getting back into video. I might even
Mhm.
start a podcast as well. Again,
Yeah.
restart a podcast.
Yeah.
And I should say, I wanted to say this point actually, which is really, I think for me, a really important part of that
Mhm.
journey that we didn't kind of cover over, which is I started a kind of a weekly YouTube podcast type thing
Mhm.
with a really good friend of mine, Nick, who's also in this kind of world of innovation and
Mhm.
design and whatever else, strategy. And he's helped me an enormous amount. Nick Himo on YouTube, if anyone does want to go check him out, incredible. We started to train together a few years ago, exercise together over Zoom before COVID. So over Zoom at 5:45 in the morning, we'd get together and we'd exercise together, watching each other exercise over Zoom. Crazy,
Yeah.
now it's like normal, everyone does it, and it's
Yeah.
great. But we were doing that way back, and then we started this, and we were having these conversations at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was
Mhm.
like, we should be recording this. This is great content. So
Yeah.
we're like, well, let's do it then. So we did it, and the reason that we did it was not at the time to get anywhere. There wasn't a big goal.
Right.
The goal for me, and I think the goal for us both actually at the time, was we need to be better at talking about this stuff.
Mhm.
And so what happened with the videos is that it gave us both enormous confidence,
Yep.
because we could start to articulate, we could start to um, get that link from the brain to the mouth tighter. And
Yep.
so we were, just really focusing on, and that kind of playing into our facilitation and coaching
Mhm.
and everything else. But the videos gave so much confidence. And I'm someone that struggled with confidence
Mhm.
over many years. And I hope in some ways that doesn't come across now, because
No, it
feel
doesn't.
so much more confident. But I've really did struggle. And I think that even just getting a phone out and filming yourself, even if
Mhm.
it goes nowhere, talking about something that you love
Yep.
and watching it back, and you'll hate it to start with, but do
Yeah.
it again. Get into that practice. Get into
Yeah.
that practice, because you get so much confidence. You get better at
Mhm.
being able to talk about things. I can't wait to have interviews. I can't wait to do those things that some people dread now,
Yeah.
because I just feel really comfortable in that space. And I think that was one of the big pivotal moments for me as well.
I think it's huge. I can't say enough. Like if you're a business owner, if you're even an employee, if you're just making a career change and you're having to put yourself out in a different way and you're like, oh, I'm an introvert. I can't speak in front of people. Or even as a business owner, like, oh, I don't want to do social media because I don't want to give that piece of myself to people. And honestly, it's just a conversation with yourself. Like, think of it in the most, like, don't pretend no one else is even watching, because odds are in the beginning no one is.
No, it is. Right. Yeah.
And just have a conversation with yourself, because yes, like just doing it over and over again really makes a huge difference. This is why you have speech class. This is why you have things like networking. What do they call it? Toastmasters, where they do
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
presentations and things like that.
Yeah.
Getting up in front of people, or even just getting in front of a camera, gives you the opportunity to, one, just talk and get used to like articulating your thoughts, but also it gives you a chance to go look back at it. And yes, it's weird and awkward. No one likes to watch themselves, but then you can start to pick apart and see, like you, I love that the design and data thing. I just love it. I really do. I'm right brain, left brain as well. So like that,
Right. Right.
totally, I love that. But it's true. Like you can pick apart the things that um, maybe you saw as strengths and weaknesses, and again, play on those strengths then, and then design your next video around that, and really keep
Mm-hmm.
playing with things. And think of it like it's almost like a toy, right? Like this is
Yeah.
creative. It's another way for you to stretch those creative muscles. Even though it's awkward and it feels really weird at first, and it's, I don't know what it is about ourselves that, like, oh, but it's putting myself out there on TV. So like, I mean, what's the worst? Like people, it's like, so someone's gonna make a comment that's negative about you. They're just text on a screen. I promise, like it's not gonna hurt you physically. You're gonna be okay. Um, it just gives you so much. Like the skill that you get from doing that is huge. Even if you don't continue a YouTube channel, like being able to be good about articulating your thoughts, one, helps with
Yeah.
job interviews, helps you with marketing if you're doing your own thing, helps you be a better person in general. Like it helps you be a better friend, a better
Yeah.
parent, a better partner. So yeah, highly
Yeah.
encourage, if anyone takes
100%.
anything from this, like go practice doing that, because yeah, it's a great tool. And yeah,
I love
obviously,
it.
like you seem so comfortable now, so I do. And I'm also an introvert, and I'm able to reach out to someone like you who's much further along the path, and say, hey, you want to come on my podcast? And odds, most people say yes. Like it's as
There you
easy
go.
as that, and you get to
It's
meet
so
a
good.
really cool person and chat for like almost an hour, so it's great.
Oh, I'm so glad you did as well. I'm
Yeah,
like,
me too.
this has been through. Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Awesome.
Loved it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to give anyone at the end here?
I don't think so. Like, yeah, we've
Awesome.
covered a lot of ground.
We
Pretty
really
much
have.
most of my life.
And
Yeah.
in 48 minutes, I'm kind of shocked. I think we did really well, to be fair. And thank you for talking so much. I appreciate my,
In a good way.
yes, my voice is not here today, so I appreciate you
Oh
that
no,
you showed
absolutely.
up for us.
Hey, no
Awesome.
worries. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on, Spencer, and we will wrap it up for today. I will put Spencer's info in the description below so that you can find him. I know that you're on LinkedIn because that's where I found you, but feel free to reach out to I or Spencer if you have any questions or concerns, and we would love to hear from you. If you are on your journey, please feel free to reach out. So until next time, take care, grow tall, and spread love, my friends. Bye.